struggle's fun while it lasts. I'm running so fast, away from my past. I do it for me and who I will be. Just watching you'll see a product of change, hardened by mistakes. You are what you make with the lessons you take. Said you are what you make with the lessons you take.
Yo, what's going on, people? Back to you with another episode of Chill Lion, and today we are going to be talking some Marvel. So, I was gonna originally break these two up into separate episodes, but I figured I'll just give you guys a double header. There's so much shit coming out this month, so I'll knock two birds out with one stone, and I'm gonna be talking about a movie and a show today. One, I'll start off with Black Widow, and then we're gonna go lead into Loki. So, Black Widow, giving you guys a quick overview of the movie. You guys know the character, Scarlett Johansson. She stole the show in Iron Man 2, and since then was a huge part of the Avengers. Black Widow basically takes place after Captain America Civil War, when the Avengers were pretty much fighting amongst themselves and beefing. And it's pretty much a movie that gives her her own little side mission that really becomes personal, and it ties into her past and a lot of the people in her past as well. And I will say this movie was really enjoyable. I did see it in the theaters. And if I have to give it a verdict, I definitely have to give it a 8 out of 10. And I'm going to kind of just get into everything for you guys too. I'm going to probably, with Black Widow, I might kind of skim through it a little quickly. But that's just because I want to make sure there's time to talk about Loki, which kind of has a lot more stakes to it. And I'll get into everything. But yeah, lot of likes for me. One, I guess I would have to say the cast. The cast for Black Widow was really, really good. And it showed in not only their chemistry, but just acting overall. Of course, you got Scarlett Johansson as the main character, Natasha herself. But there were a lot of nice additions to this movie. And, big shout out to Florence Pugh, actually, because she plays Yelena, who's actually Black Widow's sister, like Natasha's sister. And for me, she stole the show for this film. And I think most people would agree with that. Not only she is an amazing actress, you could probably know her for the Oscar-nominated movie Little Women, but she was the lead actress in Midsummer, which is one of my favorite psychological horrors that has come out in recent years. And she was amazing in this. Her Russian accent was solid. Her Russian accent was solid, and just I don't know, she just really fit the vibe. I thought casting was top notch with her, and she's just one of the top rising actresses in the industry right now, and I think she's gonna only get bigger. You're gonna start seeing her in a lot more movies and possibly other series down the road. But she's tied into Marvel now, and she's gonna be playing a big part into future shows or films that Marvel comes out with. And you guys will see, if you saw the movie, you understand what I'm saying. I don't really want to include too many spoilers, but there's a lot of things in that point that she's going to be around for a while. Secondly, David Harbour was also in this. You guys know him from Stranger Things. He was pretty good. A little bit of forced comedy there, but he's an actor I have a lot of respect for, and he's kind of his own vibe. He's kind of his own thing, and I got a lot of respect for him. So he was a nice addition. And then who else was also Rachel Weisz was in it as well. She's very, very beautiful, very experienced actress. She's in a lot of stuff, so she was a nice addition as well. So yeah, casting was great in this movie. I think one of Black Widow's strongest features, I guess you could say, or just one of the strongest things about the movie. Action packed from beginning to end. It had a really strong opener and intro, but as things kind of played out, like this action sequences and scenes really flowed. So the pacing was nice, but this movie had a ton of action. So I thought it was really enjoyable because me, I like combat. I like fighting. And the fighting and combat in this movie was super clean. Shout out to like the choreographers. Everything looks super clean. Even Black Widow and her sister, they have like a nice little fight themselves. You know, when they're first reintroduced to each other as they're older, and yeah, that was pretty cool too. It led into like a nice little chase. So acting and combat was great. Another like for me, and I'm not even gonna go into details about this at all. So if you saw the movie, you know it. But if not, go see the movie. You know what I'm talking about. But there is a post-credit scene in this movie, like most Marvel movies, and I thought that was really, really well done. Not gonna tell you anything about it, but there's little hints of like what's to come, little hints of manipulation. And I don't know. I thought it was a really strong post-credit scene, so definitely wait after the credits. Dislikes. I did have a few dislikes about the movie, despite me giving it a strong grade of 8 out of 10. There were dislikes, and one of the dislikes for Black Widow for me was just the timing of the release. I think that's just something that can't be ignored. This movie takes place after Captain America Civil War, which is in one of the later phases, but still, like, there was a bunch of movies that came after that as well, like, you know, Infinity War, Endgame, other side movies. So I don't know, this movie just should have came out years ago, and it's as simple as that. And I know there were a lot of fans that were advocating for Black Widow to get her own movie at the time that, like, you know, Civil War came out and stuff like that. The studios just never threw the money towards like the making of and it's unfortunate. It's definitely unfortunate because I felt like this movie could have been just so much more impactful if the release was better. But if you're a Marvel fan and you have a strong understanding of the universe and its timeline, then it's not the biggest deal. A lot of people were like shitting on this movie in some of the reviews, and that was a big part of it. But it's just like the timing was off with the release. But I still, even though it's a dislike for me, I'm not gonna really let that affect the overall grade that I give the movie, because I'm judging off of the movie, not when it's released, but of just how it's executed and just the director's vision. Other dislikes, let's see. Taskmaster. Taskmaster. Sorry, I was fucking up the name. One of the villains in this movie. There are two villains in this movie. Taskmaster is one of the villains, and at first comes off really strong, really cool looking, awesome like fighting, and just like it's a really cool character. If you know the comics, the cartoons, and stuff like that, you're pretty much happy with how the villain looked, its body language, its fighting, all made sense. But I won't get into full details, but the character does get kind of ruined because it's kind of revealed who the villain is, and for me it felt a little forced. I don't know. They didn't do full justice to the character. That's all I'm gonna really say. And if you saw the movie, definitely shoot me a message. Slide into those DMs. And let me know if you kind of felt the same way. Let's see. I guess the last dislike for me. Actually, no. There's two other dislikes for me. I felt towards the end, the movie started to feel a little underwhelming. The action was still really good, visually stunning, But that ending for me, I mean, it's a side movie, and it's a movie that's thrown into a timeline that we're well past already. We're our focus is on what's to come, the future, not the past. So I don't know. Towards the end of the movie, it started to feel a little underwhelming for me. Let's see what else. And then lastly, the humor in this movie. So Marvel humor's just its thing. They got to throw in their cheesy jokes and stuff like that. We're all used to it by now. The humor in this movie started off organic, and it was actually started off pretty strong for me. But then it got to a point where just like, I don't know, it started to get a little tiring for me. And it's just like, I wish they would have just held back on some of the jokes towards the second half of the film. Like, at that point, it's kind of over the jokes. Like, you don't need to try so hard to be funny, but it is what it is. Despite some of the few dislikes I had, I thought it was a really enjoyable movie. I watched it in the theater. Definitely a movie that's better to watch in the theater. I know Disney is offering it on Disney Plus. You could pay for it and just watch it from the convenience of your home. But I encourage you to watch the movie in the theater. I think you'll find it a lot more enjoyable. And yeah, 8 out of 10. Let's get into Loki, because I want to have a little bit more time to dive into this one. Marvel has had such a strong start to 2021. We're entering the second half of the year now, but WandaVision I thought was excellent. Falcon versus the Winter Soldier, that exceeded my expectations. And if you guys want to hear thoughts on that, there is an episode. If you've been with the podcast already, you've seen it already. But if this is your first episode watching, go back a few videos. I did give thoughts on the Falcon versus the Winter Soldier. So it's had a really strong start, and I can't lie to you. Going into Loki, I wasn't excited for it. It's a character I didn't even really like that much, to be honest with you. I thought Marvel has so many amazing villains. I was to the point after all the movies we've had. I understand Tom Middleton's an amazing actor, but just Loki is just not the most intriguing character to me. So I felt like he's just a fan favorite from like cinematic fans, because Tom Middleton's just such an amazing actor. So going into the show, I really wasn't that excited about it. But I will say I have good things to say about the show. I have really good things to say. Now my verdict, I'm going to give Loki a 7 out of 10. That's good. It's good on my scale. But I'd say probably after the first 3.5, after the first 3 episodes and then a little bit of the 4th episode, I gotta be honest, I was really fixated on giving it a 6. But then taking this and leading it into my likes, the show ended super, super strong, especially in the last 2 episodes. Episode 4 had its moments, but the last 2 episodes of the show were really, really strong for me. So I gotta give credit to where it's due. Even though it's a character that I'm not crazy about, I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 10, and we're gonna dive into it. So let's get it. So Loki takes place post Endgame, and if you remember in Avengers Endgame, Loki was killed off by Thanos. So this is a character that's dead. But if you remember in Endgame, they did go into another timeline, and that's where they traveled to a timeline that took place during the first Avengers in New York, and the Loki from that actually escapes. And that's the Loki that's with us for this show. That worked for me. That totally worked for me. Especially because Loki's character really transformed over the universe. He's developed like any other character. So for me, going into Loki, I thought this was gonna possibly work because we were gonna get a Loki from the first Avengers who's a lot more sinister. Fortunately, we didn't fully get all of that, but I'll get into that with dislikes. But likes, show started really, really. Oh, sorry, not started. The show ended really, really strong. I mentioned that. And one thing I gotta give that credit to is WandaVision and Winter Soldier, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Two negatives for those shows for me was that the shows were great, ended not so strong. Like I felt like both endings to those shows were underwhelming. So unlike the previous releases from Marvel, this Loki show ended super, super strong. So shout out to them for that. Excellent acting, but are you surprised it's Tom Middleton? But with the rest of the cast too, I thought the acting was really good in Loki because this is one of my dislikes. The show started off really corny. It started off kind of weak for me, I'm gonna be honest with you. But one thing that did keep me in it was the acting. I thought the dialogue was excellent. It was well written. So that's a like. And just like I said, with where it ends so strong, another like for me is it makes you excited for everything that's to come. And I'm not just talking about the other releases for the next couple Marvel movies or shows that could be coming out, but it's confirmed that Loki is getting a season 2. And that's something I didn't expect. I thought this was going to be kind of similar to the other shows where they were going to have like that limited series type of feel, especially with Loki only being 6 episodes. In my mind, I'm like, okay, this is a limited series. It's just going to introduce us to this multi-universe stuff and just lead us into the next phase for Marvel. But the show ends so strong. It confirms that there's a season 2, and I'm not mad at it. Like I said, going into the show, I was not excited about it. Finishing the show, I will happily be tuning into season 2 because I think there's a lot of quality there. As for dislikes, because I do have my dislikes, and I already mentioned some of them. Super corny start, mentioned that. As for me mentioning the Loki character that's from that timeline in Endgame that takes place during the first Avengers in New York, that first battle. My expectations for this Loki, definitely more sinister, full on evil. But I think one thing that's a little bit of a plot hole for the Loki show, and that's a dislike for me, is this feels like a Loki that's post-Thor Ragnarok. And, that Loki I felt like was a little bit on the lighter side, and he became more likable from like the characters in the universe. He wasn't looked at fully as villain. I feel like that's the Loki we get in the show. And it's not a terrible thing, but it just doesn't make sense, because if this is a Loki that's taken from another timeline, from a moment in the universe prior to all of that character development, although the fans know that Loki, this Loki shouldn't even know that Loki yet. So that was a plot hole for me. I felt like we should have gotten a little bit more of a petty and evil Loki in this show. But I understand why they didn't do that, and it's because, hey, he's the main character. He's playing the anti-hero type thing where he's like a villain, but he's kind of like a hero. So they're trying to make him more likable to the audience. But he's a villain. If you're going to have a show about a villain, just make him a villain. That's it. Like, that's how it should be, in my opinion. Another thing I didn't really like about the show, I felt like the romance between him and Sylvie was super forced. Sylvie is basically Loki in the female form from another timeline. And yeah, it makes sense why he would fall in love with her. Loki's a narcissistic character, so of course he's gonna fall in love with himself, let alone the female version of himself. But I don't know, the romance for me still felt forced because it is kind of like himself. And then, like, I thought it was a missed opportunity for Marvel and Disney because it's like you had them working together a majority of the show. And, like, that's like a perfect setup for, hey, a guy and a girl can work together and spend all this time together without there being a romantic relationship between the two. That they could just genuinely be friends that are working together to get shit done. So I don't know, for me the romance felt just a little bit forced. But nonetheless, that's pretty much my only dislikes. Nonetheless, the show really came around because the first 3 episodes, it was tough for me to sit through. Episode 2 actually had some good moments. Episode 1 I thought was the worst. Episode 3 wasn't terrible, but it was, in my opinion, a little uneventful. So, like, the first half of the show was just like, I was fixated on giving it a 6. But it came around and it came really strong. It introduces us to Kane the Conqueror, who's going to be a really big villain in the next movie or a couple shows that come out. I'm not really sure how Marvel is going to do it or how long they extend, his story as a big villain. But I'm excited. I thought the actor who played him, forgive me, I didn't look up his name before filming this, but I thought he was awesome in that last episode. The dialogue was really solid, and he gave us a lot of little hints and clues and was pretty much laying everything on the table for us. And yeah, I thought that was a really cool addition. Definitely a good character to bring from the comics. So yeah, Loki, I'm giving a 7 out of 10. And if you think a 7 out of 10 is low, just understand my scale's a little different. I talk about this in all my episodes. So 7 is good, and I wasn't even gonna originally give the show a 7. So yeah, definitely shout out to Marvel. I thought both were strong. But are we really surprised at this point? Like, Marvel is just proven with consistency that whether you like or dislike a movie or a show by them, because believe me, there's a few movies I dislike by Marvel. I'm not afraid to say it. I'm not like a super Marvel fanboy. But just Marvel's level and Disney's level of consistency and effort, they really think things through, and that's how most stuff should be made. They don't rush a lot of stuff. It all makes sense. And as a DC fan, it just, like, it doesn't piss me off. I don't get pissed off at Marvel, but I get pissed off at DC because DC is still a mess. Everyone's talking about restore the Snyder Cut, restore the Snyder Cut. No. That Justice League movie was so much better than the original Justice League movie. But it took Zack Snyder 4 hours to make beneficial changes to that. And yeah, that was his true vision. That was the whole point of the Snyder Cut. But that alone's not saving DC for me. And what's DC got going on? Are they doing what Marvel's doing right now with the shows? No, they're not. Shit, the next release by them is Suicide Squad with John Cena. The time is now. Yeah, John Cena's in this new Suicide Squad. You got Margot Robbie speaking to people, saying that she's not even interested in really doing the Harley Quinn role anymore. And how much of a missed opportunity is that? Like, she's a perfect Harley Quinn, but because the movies are such shit, the Suicide Squad movies are so terrible, that you're losing your cash cow, Margot Robbie. So shame on DC. I don't care how you feel. You gotta give Marvel credit. So without being said, I'm out of here. I'm gonna go roll a joint, start coming up with some other ideas. Next episode is gonna be, I guess this counts as movies. Yeah, the next episode I'm gonna talk about Fear Street, which was released by Netflix, a little fun 3-part slasher. Some of you probably saw it already. Some of you probably thought it didn't look all that. But I got some thoughts on it. All 3 parts were released in the last 3 weeks. Finally saw all of them, and that should be a fun episode. So stay tuned for that. And if you're still watching, appreciate it. If you gotten this far and you don't already follow me, do me a favor. That I think it should be over here, or is it over there? I don't know. I think it's over here. Go hit that heart that's right there. Give me a like, show some love. And while you're at it, you already watched the whole video. Drop a motherfucking follow on the page. The podcast is only going to get better. Trust me, it's going to only get better. I have a bunch of ideas, all about executing them, of course. But I'm excited because we just got so much stuff coming, guys. So yeah, thank you again for all the love and support. Y'all take it easy. Peace.